Okay, so chapter 4 also discusses adding a style sheet or adding style to the page. Now, before we go into that, let's just quickly take a look at, we have our HTML document, okay? And in the HTML document, remember, there is the head of the document, and then there is the body of the document. The body of the document is where your content goes, okay? And the whole idea is to provide meaning to the page. Okay, so not just the content itself, but some meaning to the content. And the meaning is often in the HTML outline, the order. Okay, so we have an image, we have an H1, an HR, H3, P tag, H3, P tag, so on and so on. So the order that the content is in the code is the order that you're going to see the content in the structure of the page. So HTML pages are top to bottom. They're in line. Okay? So your content has to be in order, in the order that you want to see it on the page. And it's a linear top to bottom order. Now, there are things you can do to add a bit more, shall we say, style or meaning to your content. So as an example, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on our code here a little bit. And let's just say we go to this first P tag. And instead of a simple paragraph, maybe we want to say this is strong. In the olden days, people used bold, but the correct way now is strong. So we're going to set the text strong. So if we save, and then let's go ahead and get at our page here. Whoops, sorry about that. I knew I was going to do this. I have these hot corners and makes me have to, whoops. Makes me have to restart the page. Oh well, I'll try not to do that next time. Okay, so let me get the page down here without going to the hot corner. Let's go ahead and refresh our page. And you'll see our first paragraph is now bolded type, or it's set strong. Okay, we could also use something like, instead of strong, let's set this to italic, but nowadays we use emphasis instead of italic. So make sure we open and we close. So now we're going to set our text to be emphasized. So let's refresh, and you'll see your text is italicized, or it's emphasized. We might do, instead of that, let's do block quote. So it's kind of like if you were writing a paper in a very simple editor where you can't get too fancy. You add basic formatting to give meaning to the page. So let's go ahead and block quote, and we'll save. And you'll see you now have your text block quoted. All right. So in the chapter, they talk about style. So what we're doing right now is we're adding meaning to the body of the page. If we want to add style or presentation, we do that in the head of the document. Now, you can add what are called inline styles, which is kind of a no-no. I'm going to show you, but there's limited times that we use inline styles, okay? Because inline style overrides the user's needs. And that's not what it's about. This is about semantics. This is about usability, okay? So we have to be careful that we don't mix our presentation with our meaning. Now, let's go ahead and get rid of this block quote here first. So let's just put this back to a P tag, and P tag, and then we'll save. So the meaning of your page is in the body of the document. The styling of the page, the presentation, is going to go in the head of the document. And when we separate those two, that is called semantic markup or semantic design. Okay, it's the separation of the content, the meaning, and the presentation or the aesthetics, the styling of the content. The colors, the background colors, the sizes, the placements, those sorts of things. We don't do that in the body of the document, okay? But as an example, let's just take a look at what is inline CSS, okay? So in our body element, and again, let's just go ahead and we'll make our code a little larger here. Just as we get more and more code, it gets or becomes a little more difficult to see. So in the body element, we're going to add a space and we're going to type style equals, and then we're going to have our quote mark. So attribute, and then we're going to start adding some values. Okay, so let's just say that we want, I'm going to use the longhand version here. So we'll go background hyphen color colon, and then we need to call out a color. So if we just did gray, like that, and then we need a semicolon. So we have our attribute, and then we have our attribute value. So if I save and then go ahead and refresh the page, you'll see that our background is gray. Okay, well, gray is a little boring, so you could do a search for HTML color, and there's all kinds of tools. This one just happened to become available, htmlcolorcodes.com. And this is really nice because we can just drag through our spectrum of colors, and then we can choose a value of our color, okay? And we're given a hexadecimal. And a hexadecimal is basically red, green, and blue, okay? RGB, red, green, and blue light. And that is done with combinations of 0 through 9, A through F, okay? And we're assigning either a number or a letter or a combination of a number of letters to red, green, and blue light. All right, so I'm just going to copy, and then we'll go back to our code here, and instead of gray, I'll do £, because that's what we have to do, and paste in what is our hexadecimal color, our alphanumerics, which represent red, green, and blue light in two placement combinations of 0 to 9, A through F. Okay, so let's just go ahead and save, and I'm going to scroll back up here before I lose this, and then we'll go back to our page and refresh, and you'll see that our color is changed. Okay, now this is inline CSS, all right, which means it's going to override what the user wants. And that's not a good thing to do, all right? You would want your CSS, your presentation, to be document level, not inline, all right? So I'm just going to copy this for right now and delete it. And we'll save, and we should go back. Okay. Now, if I go ahead and after the title of the document, we're going to create the area within the head of the document where our styles will go. So we'll do style type equals, then we have our quote marks, and then I'm just going to go ahead and complete this style element, and the type of style will be text CSS. Okay, so we're letting the styles know that we're using text. More specifically, this is for the CSS. So let's go ahead and just target the body element. This is called a selector. Then we're going to create what is the area for our declarations. Okay, and in this case, we start a declaration with a property. And our property in this case will be background color, colon, and then I'm going to go back and get that color I had here. Let's just copy this. And then we'll go back to our code and we'll do £, our color, and then we will go ahead and have our semicolon. So we have our CSS rule. It's called the declaration block. This is the tag element. Okay, so we're using an HTML tag, but the technical name here is this is the selector. There's different kinds of selectors we can use. In this case, an HTML element. Then we have the property, which we want to target, and then we have the value we're going to place. Okay. Now remember down here we have attribute, attribute value. Up here, property, property value. Okay. All right. So if we go ahead and save, and we go back and reload our page, you'll see that the color again shows up. But now the color is being created as a style in the head of the document. So this is a very simple example of semantic markup. The separation of the document's content and meaning and any presentation. Okay? So the presentation is purely about the aesthetics. It's purely gratuitous. It's about the layout. What's important is we separate the two, so we only have meaning in the bottom of the page, and then we have our styles in the top of the page. Now we're going to get into CSS a whole lot more later, but just sort of to give you a heads up of how this works.